If you've been paying attention to the news lately and you're either in the US or you happen to enjoy US politics, you may know that current US plug-in car incentives are threatened with premature death at the hands of the current tax bill making its way through the legislature. But what's going on with that? Has it passed or not? And what would happen if current US electric car incentives didn't make it through the tax bill unscathed? What would happen to EV sales figures? And what would it mean for global electric car markets as a whole? Find out next. While separate versions of the highly controversial GOP tax reform bill have now been passed by the US House of Representatives and the US Senate, which is possibly why you may think that the $7,500 federal tax credit for electric vehicles has either continued or has been killed, there's still some significant confusion as to what the text of the final bill, the one which will actually be signed into law, will say. That's because, as I'm sure some of you will know, during its final days in the Senate, the tax bill received proposed amendments far faster than they could be typed up. Senators, desperate to serve the needs of various lobbyists and special interest groups, scrawled amendments in the bill's original text before it was voted on, often in illegible cursive handwriting. The issue? Alongside not giving everyone a chance to read the bill before a final vote, it meant that the bill passed by the Senate was significantly different to the bill that was passed by the House of Representatives. And in order for those two bills to become one and get signed into law by the president, they must be reconciled and finalised, which is a fancy way of saying they've got to match. The problem for fans of cleaner, greener vehicles? Well, one bill, the Senate version, kept the federal tax incentive program for clean cars intact. The other version, as passed by the House, proposed killing it at the end of this year when the legislation came into effect. And that means even if the finalisation process happens before the end of the legislative session and the bill is signed into law, there's still a possibility the $7,500 federal tax incentive for those buying electric, plug-in hybrid and other zero-emission vehicles could end up on the cutting block. Ostensibly, you may think there's not much you can do right now to change the outcome of the reconciliation process. But if the bill hasn't been signed into law yet, there is still time to call your Congress critter and let them know how you feel about the incentives. But the purpose of this episode today isn't so much to encourage you to talk to your elected officials. It's to try and decide what the impact of removing that federal tax incentive will be. So with that in mind, I'm going to state what we already know about other incentive programs for electric cars coming to a close. In every situation I can think of, electric vehicle sales have initially dipped by significant amounts. This was illustrated nicely in 2015 when the state of Georgia decided to end plug-in car incentives and replace them with a road tax levy on electric vehicles. That caused electric vehicle sales to tumble off a cliff in the state, with very few people from that point on willing to pay extra for a plug-in car when at one time they could get some pretty big discounts off MSRP. If the final version of the US tax bill, if it actually gets passed, misses out EV credits moving forwards, 2018 could be a very bad year indeed for electric vehicle sales in states where there aren't existing generous incentive programs. Even in states like California and Colorado, where tax incentives for buying an EV have traditionally helped plug-in cars sell almost at parity with gasoline models in terms of overall sticker price, expect a dramatic drop in sales during 2018. And that will impact automakers in different ways. First up, expect lease deals to get a whole lot more expensive, since the leases currently factor in that federal tax credit as part of their overall pricing packages. And that may price many would-be buyers out of the market completely, even if they're looking at models which, at the moment, come in at a reasonably affordable price. When it comes to traditional sales, overall sticker prices will initially rise, but given the price ride will be national, I expect some automakers to swallow up the initial losses incurred by the repeal of the tax credit to secure a good place in the EV marketplace moving forwards. Nissan will likely be in the best position to do so, since its Leaf electric car is being sold worldwide and the price is already pretty reasonable. So while I doubt the entire tax credit will be written off, I'd expect Nissan to drop the MSRP of entry-level Leafs, or decontent a little, to ensure that the car remains affordable for as many people as possible. I'm less convinced GM will do the same with the Bolt EV, primarily because it's not as widely sold around the world, and I suspect that larger battery pack means it's already losing GM more money than the Leaf is losing Nissan. But just like Nissan, GM has invested a lot of money in the Bolt EV, and I, for one, don't see it ending production of EVs just because of a repeal of tax credits. In the short term too, I'd expect third parties and utility companies to step up to the plate, as we've seen in Georgia, offering group discount buys for significant volume purchases that could match the same sticker prices available under current tax incentives. Eventually, however, I expect market forces to come into play and lower the overall prices of electric cars, since other countries around the world are pushing harder than ever before for electric vehicles, and automakers prefer to make a vehicle sell in as many markets as possible in order to get as high a profit as possible and spread those costs. Killing EV sales in the US when automakers are trying to make electric vehicles as affordable as possible seems very unlikely. What's more likely is a market adjustment of pricing around the world to help swallow the lack of US incentives, which could make EVs more expensive for everyone around the world for a short time, followed by a continued drop of prices. For the next 2 or 3 years, however, electric vehicle sales will most definitely be on a downward spiral if the tax credits are ended prematurely. As for Tesla, it needs to get those tax credits as much as the next automaker, but with most Teslas, even the Model 3, when spec'd with extra packages, more expensive than other EVs on the market, I suspect the effect of the tax credit will have more of an impact on Tesla's losses than it will on the overall number of customers it gets. That's it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, hit the notification bell to hear the moment a new show is uploaded, and click the Patreon link at the end of this video or in the description below if you want to help me make more of these videos. Until next time, keep evolving.